The grand auction square in the capital of Jaren Prime was louder than ever. Hundreds of nobles and alien warlords filled the stone arena, each one wrapped in rich fabrics and holding bidding tablets. Giant banners hung from the towers. Above, showing the symbol of the Jaren Empire, a golden hawk with wings spread wide. But today, it was not just a trade of weapons, ships, or territory. Today, something rare was on the block: the Emperor's daughter. Tali stood tall on the raised platform, chains on her wrists, but fire in her eyes. Her silver blue hair was braided tight, and a royal mark glowed softly on her forehead. The crowd stared at her like she was a treasure, but she stared back like a wild animal that would never be tamed. "She is the youngest daughter of Emperor Voller," the auctioneer called out, his voice echoing through the square. "Strong mind, strong will, trained in tactics, language, and science. She will obey in time." Tali laughed. "I will obey no one," she said loudly. "Not him, not you, not anyone who buys me." Gasps and murmurs filled the arena. The Emperor, watching from a high balcony, did not react. His face was like stone. He had warned her, disobey his plans, and she would be made an example. She had refused the marriage he arranged. She had broken the traditions of the royal house. Now he was keeping his word. One by one, the bids began. A warlord from the frozen moons offered 10 star barges. A noble from the flame sector offered slaves and jewels. The numbers climbed higher, and Tali stood unmoved. Then, from the back row of the auction, a single human stood up. He was tall, with a rough jacket, dusty boots, and a simple expression. His name was Cole. Though few here knew him, he was not a noble, not a soldier, not even part of the empire. Some laughed when he raised his hand. "This auction is for honored guests," the auctioneer said sharply. Cole didn't respond. He reached into a small bag on his belt and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. When he opened it, even the most powerful guest leaned forward. It was a Terran relic, an old, rare crystal used in human energy weapons during their lost wars. Powerful, untraceable, and very, very valuable. Silence spread like a wave. Cole spoke for the first time. "I bid this." "For her." Tali looked at him, confused. She had never seen this man before. She didn't know why a human would care. He wasn't dressed like someone with power. He didn't look dangerous. And yet, somehow, his voice was calm, strong, not boastful. The auctioneer glanced up at the Emperor, who gave a small nod. "Bid accepted." The auctioneer declared, "Sold to the human. The Emperor's daughter now belongs to you." 2 guards unlocked Tali's chains and pushed her forward. She stumbled but quickly regained her balance. As they handed her over, she looked into Cole's eyes. "You don't even know me," she said. "I know you don't belong here," he replied. He turned and walked toward the edge of the square. Tali hesitated, then followed. She didn't trust him, but something about his voice pulled at her. Behind them, the crowd began to talk. Some were angry, some were shocked, others were curious. Why had the Emperor allowed it? Why had a human stepped into a royal auction? They reached a small landing dock where Cole's ship was waiting. It was nothing like the smooth, golden ships of the nobles. His freighter was old, scratched, and clearly held together by repairs and patches. The name Dandelion was painted along the side. Tali stopped before the ramp. "So, what now?" she asked. Cole glanced back. "You're free to go, if you want, but if they catch you, they'll bring you right back here." She narrowed her eyes. "You expect me to trust you?" "No," he said. "I just gave you a door. You can choose to walk through or not." Tali stood there, thinking. All her life, people had tried to control her, use her name, her status, her bloodline. Cole was the first to offer her a choice. She walked up the ramp, inside. The ship was dim but clean. No servants, no gold, just tools, wires, and old screens. Cole pointed to a door. "Your room. Food's in the galley. Don't break the engine." Tali turned slowly. "That's it. No rules? No orders?" Cole shrugged. "You're not my prisoner." He walked off toward the cockpit, leaving her standing alone. Tali entered the small room. There was a narrow bed, a shelf with some books, and a clean set of clothes folded on the edge. She sat down, still unsure what just happened. She wasn't free. Not fully. But she wasn't caged anymore either. Outside the window, the stars were starting to shift as the ship lifted off. Tali didn't know who Cole was or why he had bid for her. But one thing was clear: he wasn't like the others. And for now, that was enough. As the dandelion left the capital behind, Tali stared at the stars and whispered to herself, "This isn't over. Not by far." Tali had been aboard the dandelion for 3 days, and every second of it felt strange. She was used to golden walls, servants, orders, and silence when she spoke. But this ship was full of creaking sounds, blinking lights, loose wires, and worst of all, freedom. Cole barely spoke to her. He flew the ship, fixed broken parts, cooked basic meals, and sometimes sat in the cockpit staring into space. He didn't lock her door. He didn't ask her to do anything. He didn't treat her like a prisoner. And that made her more uncomfortable than any chain. Tali tried to test him. On the second day, she pulled wires from the comms panel. Cole repaired them without a word. Later, she changed the air filter settings to make the room too cold. Cole reset them without complaint. She even threw her food on the floor during dinner, just to see if he would yell. He just handed her a cloth and said, "You made the mess. Clean it." Tali cleaned it, but her pride burned. She didn't understand this human. Every other person in her life had wanted something from her: obedience, power, loyalty. But Cole treated her like she was just another person on the ship. No special attention, no fear, no praise, just space to exist. That night, she found him sitting on a crate in the cargo bay, working on a broken drone. He didn't look up when she entered. "You're strange," she said. "So I've heard," he replied, tightening a bolt. "Why did you buy me?" He paused for a moment, then looked up. "I don't like auctions." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." She crossed her arms. "Do you expect me to serve you? Do chores? Obey?" Cole stood and placed the drone aside. His expression stayed calm, but his eyes were firm. "You're not a servant. You're not a prisoner. You're a person. What you do here is up to you." Tali stared at him. No one had ever said that to her. "I don't trust you," she said quietly. "Then keep your distance." Cole replied and walked past her toward the sleeping quarters. Tali stayed behind, her thoughts spinning. She had always been sharp, strong, and ready to fight, but this calmness, this lack of control, felt more dangerous than battle. The next morning, Cole was already working in the engine room. The smell of grease and heat filled the air. Tali watched from the doorway, arms folded. "I can help," she said. He handed her a tool without turning around. "Then hold this steady." They worked together in silence. It was the first peaceful moment since she came aboard. Later that day, the warning alarm echoed through the ship. Cole rushed to the cockpit, and Tali followed. A red blinking mark showed up on the radar. "Empire scout ship," Cole muttered. "They're tracking us. Because of me," Tali said. He didn't answer. His hands moved quickly over the controls. "They'll send more," she said. "You should leave me somewhere." "I'm not worth this." Cole glanced at her. "You're not a thing, and I don't leave people behind." The words hit her harder than she expected. He pulled the ship into a sharp turn, diving through an asteroid field. Tali watched as he guided the dandelion between spinning rocks and narrow gaps. Alarms blared. Lights flickered, but Cole's hand stayed steady. After 10 minutes of high-speed flying, the scanner went quiet. Tali let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "You've done that before," she said. Cole nodded. "Once or twice." He stood from the pilot's seat and stretched. "They'll be back," she said. "Then we stay ahead." That night, Tali sat alone in the galley, staring at her food. Cole had gone to repair a coolant leak. The silence was heavy. She thought about her life before. All the rules, all the commands, all the cold eyes watching her every move. Here, there were no rules, just space, stars, and a strange human who treated her like she mattered. Later, she found herself walking to the cockpit. Cole was sitting there, legs up, staring out the front window. She sat beside him. Stars look different from here, she said. Out here, no one owns them, he said. She looked at him. What were you before this? He didn't turn. Just a pilot. Then I saw one auction too many. Couldn't watch anymore. You risked everything for someone you didn't know. I risked everything for someone who shouldn't have been for sale. Tali was quiet. The stars blinked outside like distant fires. She didn't know what to call this feeling inside her. It wasn't safety. Not yet. But it was the first time. In here she didn't feel like she had to wear a mask. She stood up to leave. I still don't trust you, she said. Cole smiled without looking. That's fine. Trust is earned. Tali walked back to her room and sat on the bed. She opened one of the books on the shelf. It was about ancient Terran explorers. As she read, she thought about how far she was from home. And for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to go back. The docking lights of Station Ilna blinked in the distance like distant stars. The Kestrel slowed as it approached, its engines humming low from the cockpit window. Ari watched in silence. She had never seen a station this large before. Dozens of ships floated nearby. Bright banners hung across the docking zones. Workers in suits walked along the glass corridors. Tom spoke calmly as he guided the ship in. It's a peaceful place, trade's clean, and the locals aren't the greedy type. Ari said nothing, but her hands gripped the seat. She still didn't feel safe in crowded places. The memory of the market on Cinder 9 was still fresh in her mind. The ship docked with a soft thump. Tom stood up and looked at her. I need to check in with port control. You can stay here if you want, or come with me. Ari hesitated. Then she stood up and followed him. Inside the station, the air was clean. The lights bright. Unlike Cinder 9, Station Ilna was organized. Droids rolled by carrying crates. Traders talked in low voices. No one shouted. No one begged. Tom led Ari through a row of counters where travelers registered their cargo. At the third desk, a uniformed officer scanned Tom's ID. The officer nodded and looked at Ari. Is she with you? Tom nodded. Yes, she's under my sponsorship. The officer typed something into the console. Then he leaned forward. You know the rule, right? Tom's expression didn't change. I've read the code. The officer tapped the screen. Once you list her under your sponsorship, she's your responsibility. Any law broken, any unpaid debts your name is attached. You sure about this? I'm sure, Tom replied. The officer printed a card and handed it to Tom. This is her ID for Station Ilna. Keep it safe. Tom gave it to Ari. She took it slowly, staring at the small plastic card. It had her name and a code at the bottom. For the first time, her name was printed in an official place. She turned to Tom. Why did you do that? He looked her in the eye. Because now you're protected. They finished the delivery in a small warehouse on level B. Tom handed off the crates of tools and supplies, and in return, received food packs, credits, and spare parts for his ship. While he worked with the warehouse chief, Ari stood near the entrance, watching everything. She noticed how workers moved, how the droids sorted the boxes, how the doors locked automatically after each shipment. Her eyes caught every small detail. She remembered things fast. After the job was done, Tom handed her a sealed food pack. Let's take a walk. They walked through the lower level of the station. It was quieter there. The upper decks were filled with travelers and trade. The lower decks were where the locals lived. Tom pointed at the different shops. See that? They fix power cores. And over there, parts from crashed ships. Good place to find rare stuff. Ari stayed close, her eyes moving from door to door. Then they turned a corner and walked past a group of guards standing near a wall scanner. As soon as Ari came into view, one of the guards stepped forward. Hey, he called. Let me see her ID. Tom stepped between them. She's under my care. Here's her card. The guard took it, scanned it, and then looked at Ari with suspicion. She doesn't look like a local. Where's she from? Tom's tone was calm. She's a survivor. Her ship was attacked near the rim. She's done nothing wrong. The guard stared at Ari, then gave back the card. She better not cause trouble. You're the one who'll pay for it. They walked away without a word, but once out of sight, Ari looked at Tom. I don't understand. Why are they like that? Tom's jaw was tight because on some planets and stations, non-citizens have no rights unless someone sponsors them. Without that card, they could take you, question you, or worse, you're safe now. But not everywhere is safe. Ari looked down at the card in her hand. It was just a piece of plastic, but it meant something bigger. Why did they make rules like that? Because power protects power, Tom answered, and those without it get left behind. Back on the ship, Ari sat alone in the small side room. She placed the ID card on the table and looked at it again. It had her name, her face, and a number. For a long time, she had no proof she existed. Now she did. She thought about the guard's face, how quickly he had questioned her, how ready he had been to take her away. If Tom hadn't spoken, she would have been dragged off. She had seen it happen before. On Syndra 9, people without sponsors disappeared. She looked at the jacket, folded beside her. Tom had helped her with that too. Tom sat in the cockpit, going through station logs and his ship's next route. He rubbed his eyes, tired from the day. When Ari entered the room, he looked up. I want to help more, she said. Tom raised an eyebrow. You already help. I mean real work, not just cleaning or sorting. I want to learn how to run the ship. I want to understand how things work. Tom nodded slowly. All right, I'll teach you. Ari sat down beside him. He pulled up the navigation screen. This, he said, is how we map routes between systems. Every line you see here connects fuel stations, gates, and safe paths. Ari leaned forward, listening carefully. Her eyes didn't blink as he spoke. She asked smart questions. She learned fast. After an hour, she had already memorized half the system names. Tom smiled. You've got a good head for this. I had to learn things quickly back on the colony ship, she said. We didn't have time to waste. That night, the Kestrel left Station Elna and moved through quiet space once again. Ari stood by the window, watching the stars pass by. Her reflection looked stronger now. The bruises under her eyes were fading. Her hair had been brushed, and she held herself straighter. The card still rested in her pocket. The jacket still warmed her shoulders. Once, she had whispered that all she had were her clothes. Now, she had a name that was known. She had a place on a ship, and for the first time in her life, she had rights because someone had stood for her. She wasn't alone anymore. The Kestrel moved through open space like a quiet bird, engines steady, systems stable. The stars outside were still, but inside the ship, things were changing. Ari now spent most of her time in the cockpit, beside Tom. She asked questions, learned controls, and even started handling the navigation screen herself. Tom was impressed. She had picked up in days what others took weeks to understand. You ever think of becoming a pilot? He asked one morning. Ari shook her head. I was supposed to be a settler, build water tanks, fix solar panels. Piloting was for others. You've got the instincts for it, Tom said, and that's rare. Ari looked at the stars and gave a small smile. Maybe it's time to be something else. The next job came through an old contact. A station on the edge of a mining zone needed equipment. They were offering food, fuel, and something Tom hadn't seen in a long time: silver coins stamped with the logo of the old Trade Council. Rare and valuable. Tom accepted the job. It meant traveling through less protected space, but the reward was worth it. The drop point was a small moon called Tervana 5. We'll stop to pick up the cargo at Crosslink Depot, Tom explained to Ari. But be careful there. It's not like Station Elna. It's rough. Ari nodded. She had learned to read his tone. If he said it was rough, that meant it was dangerous. Crosslink Depot was a rusty outpost surrounded by scrap piles. Ships landed on uneven platforms. Traders shouted at each other across oil-covered ground. Broken droids lay in corners. The smell of burnt metal hung in the air. Tom and Ari walked side by side toward the cargo bay. Tom wore his vest and kept a tool in his side holster. Ari stayed close, wearing a cap low over her eyes and carrying a scanner tablet. Inside the depot office, A man named Griggs handled the deal. He was wide, wore a thick coat, and had a laugh that sounded like scraping metal. You brought help this time, Griggs said, looking at Ari. She's my crew, Tom replied. Griggs smirked. Does she talk? Ari didn't answer. Tom stepped forward. Let's just see the cargo. They followed Griggs to a large container filled with sealed boxes. Each one was marked for Trevana 5. Mining tools, heat suits, and solar converters. Ari scanned each item and cross-checked the list. It's all here, she said. Griggs looked surprised. Smart one. She's better than smart, Tom said as they loaded the cargo onto the Kestrel. Ari kept looking around. Something fell off. Too many eyes were on them. A group of workers stood near the fuel tanks, whispering and watching. Back inside the ship, Ari pulled Tom aside. Someone recognized me, she said. Tom narrowed his eyes. Are you sure? One of them followed me with his eyes the whole time. I remember his face. He was there the night my colony ship was attacked. Tom thought for a moment. We'll change the flight path. No straight line. We take the long way to Trevana 5. Ari nodded. Good idea. They took off an hour later, flying low and fast, but the feeling of being followed didn't leave. Then 3 hours into the flight, the ship alarm went off. Tom looked at the screen. We've got company, small ship behind us, fast. Ari checked the sensors. It's not a cargo ship. Looks like a hunter class. Light weapons. Tom switched. Controls. Time to see if this old ship can still dance. The Kestrel twisted through an asteroid belt. Tom flew hard, weaving between rocks. Ari called out the safe paths, guiding him through the mess. The hunter ship fired once. The blast hit a side panel, but missed the engine. They're trying to damage us, not destroy, Ari said. They want to board, Tom replied. Ari turned to him. We need to lose them. Tom grinned. I've got a trick for that. He flew the Kestrel into a narrow canyon carved into a floating ice rock. The walls pressed close. The hunter ship hesitated to follow. Tom triggered a signal burst. The burst confused the enemy radar. The hunter turned sharply and crashed into a smaller asteroid, breaking apart. Ari stared at the screen. You did it. We did it, Tom said. Your guidance saved us. After a short stop to patch the damaged panel, they arrived at Trevana 5. The moon was cold and windy. The mining station was built into the side of a rocky hill. Workers in thick suits met them at the landing pad. Tom and Ari helped unload the cargo. The station chief gave them the payment as promised: food crates, fuel packs, and a bag of silver coins. Ari held the coins in her hands. I've never seen real trade silver before. Tom nodded. These are rare now, but more honest than digital credits. As they prepared to leave, one of the miners approached Ari. You're from the lost colony ship, aren't you? Ari froze. How do you know? I saw your group before the attack. I was working near the Hawker Belt. Some of us heard what happened. Not many survived. Ari looked down. I ran. I didn't save anyone. You survived, the miner said. That matters. Tom stepped beside her. She's building something new now. The miner nodded. Good. The galaxy needs people who keep going. Back on the Kestrel, Ari sat in the cockpit, holding one of the silver coins. She turned it over slowly in her fingers. Tom sat beside her. You all right? I didn't expect to be noticed again, she said. You were part of something big. People remember. Ari looked at the stars. I just want to help. I don't want to run anymore. Tom gave her a soft smile. You're not running. You're flying. She smiled back. For once, she felt like that was true. After the job on Trevana 5, the Kestrel floated in quiet space for a day. Tom and Ari had just enough fuel, food, and rest. The stars around them blinked like distant watchers, silent and cold. Tom sat at the table with a mug of hot brew. Ari stood by the engine room door, silent. Her mind had been heavy since the miner spoke to her. She kept turning the words over in her head. You're from the lost colony ship. That sentence wouldn't leave her. Tom looked up. Something on your mind. Ari took a deep breath. Yes, something I need to tell you. Tom set his mug down. Go ahead. Ari sat across from him. She folded her hands on the table. You No, I came from a settlement ship, but you don't know why I was there. Tom waited. My family wasn't poor, she said. They were engineers, important ones. We lived on a mid-tier world, clean air, big cities. But when the Hacker War started, everything changed. My father didn't agree with the government's support of the warlords. He spoke out. They took our licenses, our home, and then us. Tom leaned forward. They sent you to the outer worlds. She nodded. Not just me, hundreds of us. They put us on resettlement missions with low supplies and no defense. The colony ship I was on was one of those missions, a silent punishment. Tom frowned. That's why they sent you out with just the clothes on your back and no way to return, Ari said. When pirates hit our ship, we had no shields, no weapons. People panicked. Some fought. Some were taken. I escaped through a vent and locked myself in a cargo unit. I didn't even have shoes, just the uniform I wore. Tom looked down. His hands tightened around his mug. I had to survive, Ari said. On that station, people only traded with what they thought had value. I was hungry, alone. I hated every moment, but I was afraid to die. Tom raised his eyes. You did what you had to do. You didn't ask to be put in that situation. I just don't want to be seen that way anymore, she said. Not as someone who begs. Not as someone weak. Tom stood up and placed his hand gently on the table. You're not weak, Ari. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You didn't break. You survived, and now you're helping others. She looked up, surprised at his steady voice. I've known war, Tom continued. I've seen what it does to people. It crushes some. But not you. You got up and kept walking. Ari took a breath. Thank you. There was a long pause between them, peaceful, quiet. Then a signal beeped on the control panel. Tom walked to the cockpit and tapped the screen. We've got a message. Local relay. No source ID. Ari joined him. What does it say? He read aloud, voice calm but serious, to the one flying the Kestrel. We know who you travel with. Hand her over, or we come and take her. You have one cycle to decide. Ari's face went pale. Tom's jaw tightened. They followed us. They want me, she whispered. Tom locked the ship's controls. Then we make them regret it. The next hours were spent preparing. Tom adjusted the ship's defensive grid. Ari calibrated the sensors to detect even small energy traces. She knew enough now to help with system overrides and security codes. They'll likely come with a small team, Tom said. Maybe a scout ship and a boarding crew. We can't fight them directly, Ari said. But maybe we don't have to. Tom raised an eyebrow. What do you have in mind? Ari pulled up the star map. There's a drift field near this system. Gas clouds and magnetic rocks. Dangerous to fly through. But if we hide in it, we can trap them. Tom studied the map and gave a slow nod. It's risky, but it could work. Let me handle the decoy. Ari said, I'll use one of the cargo drones. I'll set it to mimic our ship's signal. Tom stared at her with pride. You really have become a pilot. They reached the drift field within hours. The space around them turned cloudy and strange. Gas pockets made the sensors flicker. Magnetic rocks floated like slow knives. Tom piloted with focus, moving the Kestrel behind a thick ice boulder. Ari released the drone and sent it flying in a wide loop, broadcasting the Kestrel's ID. Minutes later, a sharp signal came through. They're here, Ari said. A dark scout ship emerged from the fog. Fast, lean, and silent, it moved toward the decoy. They're locking onto the drone, she said. Get ready. Tom activated the trap. He had placed small mining charges on nearby rocks. When the scout passed close, he triggered them. A sudden burst of light lit up the gas cloud. The scout ship was caught in the blast and spun out of control. Its engine flared, then went dark. Ari watched the screen. They're drifting. Tom exhaled. No more threats. Ari turned to him. You could have run. You didn't. He looked at her with a steady gaze. I told you, your crew, and I protect my crew. Later that night, they floated outside the drift field. The stars had returned, clear and bright. Tom and Ari sat in the small observation room, looking out. Ari leaned back. We make a good team. Tom chuckled. You're learning fast. Soon you'll be flying this thing better than me. I want to help others, Ari said. People, like me, who are trapped, lost, hungry. We can do that, Tom replied. There are plenty of dark corners in this galaxy. A ship like ours can shine a little light. Ari smiled softly. Let's be the light, then. The kestrel floated onward, silent and strong. And Ari, once alone and afraid, now had a place to belong. Ari stood near the open ramp of the kestrel, staring at the dusty colony below. The planet was dry. With yellow skies and broken buildings, the locals moved slowly, tired and thin. Some looked up as the kestrel landed, but most did not bother. Tom stepped beside her. This is Calder 3. Mining colony, used to be rich in plasma or now barely survives. The people here need help. Ari nodded. We're here for supplies and maybe to leave something behind. Tom smiled. Now you're thinking like a real crew member. The two of them walked into the settlement. It was quiet, except for the wind that blew fine dust across the ground. They passed small homes made of scrap metal and canvas. A few traders stood by carts filled with old tools and spare wires. Ari walked with purpose. She noticed every face, every child hiding behind a tent, every woman with empty hands. She remembered that feeling. The feeling of being watched but ignored, of being hungry but invisible. Tom approached a small building marked admin post. He went inside to speak with the local officer. Ari stayed outside. She saw a girl nearby, no older than 10, sitting alone beside a crate. The girl's knees were scraped, her clothes were torn. She held a piece of dry bread and stared at it like it was treasure. Ari knelt down. Hi there. What's your name? The girl blinked. Mira. Where are your parents? The girl looked down. Gone. Long time ago. Ari took off her light scarf and handed it to Mira. You look cold. Mira clutched it with both hands, her eyes wide. Thank you. Tom stepped out of the admin building. They said people have been going missing. Supply runners vanish. Some are taken. The colony is afraid to send anyone beyond the cliffs. Ari stood up. Then we'll go. Tom raised an eyebrow. You sure? She looked around. If someone's hunting the weak, we have to stop them. They left early the next day. Tom loaded light gear and weapons. Ari packed food, blankets, and medical kits. They took a small transport skiff. Enough for 2 people and fast enough to outrun trouble. As they passed the cliffs, the air grew colder. The rocks turned jagged, and the ground cracked beneath them. Tom scanned the area. Signs of a crash nearby, he said. Looks like a supply cart was taken down. Ari checked the readings. No movement. Wait, there? East slope. Tom turned the skiff and approached slowly. They found a small cave near the rocks. Inside, dim shadows moved. They stepped down and entered with caution. A young woman sat near the wall, wrapped in old cloth. Beside her were 2 children and an older man with a wounded leg. Ari gasped. They're alive. The woman looked up, startled. Who are you? Tom lowered his weapon. We're not here to harm you. We're from the colony. We came to help. The man groaned in pain. Ari rushed to his side and opened her med kit. The woman stood, guarding the children. We were taken. Pirates. They crashed our cart and dragged us here. Said they'd return for us later. Tom checked the perimeter. We have to move before they do. Ari wrapped the man's leg, then helped the woman gather the kids. We'll get you to safety. As they left the cave, a loud noise echoed through the valley. A small pirate hovercraft appeared over the ridge. Tom swore under his breath, get them in the skiff. He took cover behind a boulder and opened fire. The hovercraft returned fire, but Ari was already helping the civilians into the transport. One of the children fell while running. The pirate aimed his blaster toward the boy. Ari threw herself over the child, shielding him with her body. Tom saw it and fired with precision. His shot hit the hovercraft's engine, sending it crashing into the rocks. The silence that followed was heavy. Ari checked the boy. He was safe, shaken, but unharmed. Tom ran to her side. You all right? She nodded. Let's go, before more come. Back at the colony, the rescue group was taken in. The people gathered around them, offering blankets, water, and food. Mira saw Ari return and ran to hug her. "You came back," she whispered. Ari knelt and smiled. "Of course I did." The colony leader approached Tom. "We have no way to repay you." Tom glanced at Ari. "We didn't come for payment." Ari stepped forward. "We came because people deserve better." That night, they set up a large food station using their own supplies. Ari handed out meals with a steady smile. She talked with every child, every elder. Some cried. Some laughed for the first time in days. Tom stood nearby, watching her. He had seen warriors, soldiers, even commanders. But Ari had something different. She had a heart that refused to turn cold. Later, as they returned to the Kestrel, the sun dipped below the cliffs. Ari sat quietly in the cockpit, watching the orange light fade. Tom joined her. "You did something good today." Ari looked at him. "I want to do more. There are too many like me out there, lost, used, forgotten." Tom placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let's keep going. One stop at a time." Ari smiled. "Crew for life." Tom grinned. "Crew for life." The stars above Calder 3 shimmered as the Kestrel lifted off again, leaving behind warmth where there was once only dust. The arena of Kortal was alive with light and sound. It was the final day of the sacred ritual. The twin suns shone high, casting long shadows over the stones. The air was thick with expectation. Thousands had gathered to witness the conclusion of a journey few had ever seen. Tom stood at the center of the arena, his armor light but firm. His eyes scanned the crowd. He saw faces of many worlds, some curious, some proud, and many waiting for a great show. Beside him stood Varak, the Ulkan. Warrior's expression was calm but intense. The bond between them had grown through trials, sacrifice, and trust. Now, they faced the last challenge together. The high priest appeared, robes flowing, staff glowing. His voice echoed, "Today, the final flame will test your hearts, your spirits, and your unity. Only together will you prove worthy." The golden flame above the arena flared bright. 2 circles formed in the sand, one for each warrior. Tom and Varak stepped in. A sudden roar came from the sky, from the clouds. A massive creature descended. It was a giant fire dragon, with scales like molten rock and eyes burning like stars. The crowd gasped. The creature landed between the two warriors. Its breath was hot and heavy. Flames curled from its mouth. Tom's heart pounded. The trial was clear. They had to face the fire dragon as one. Varak drew his sword. Tom grasped his blade tight. The dragon roared again, and with a powerful sweep of its tail, it knocked Varak backward. Tom rushed forward and slashed at the dragon's thick scales. But the blade bounced off like stone. The dragon charged at Tom, flames licking the air. Tom dodged, feeling the heat singe his armor. Varak recovered and charged again. His sword cut deep into the dragon's wing. The beast roared in pain. Tom saw his chance. He ran up the dragon's side and stabbed his blade into a weak spot beneath. The scales. The dragon flailed wildly but began to slow. Together, Tom and Varak fought with every ounce of strength and skill. Their movements were synchronized. They covered each other's backs. They faced the fire as one. The arena was filled with light and heat, but the warriors did not falter. After a long struggle, the dragon let out a final roar and collapsed. Its eyes closed peacefully. The golden flame above the arena grew brighter than ever, bathing the warriors in warm light. The high priest stepped forward and raised his staff. "The fire has chosen. Together, you are worthy. Together, you carry the sacred flame." The crowd erupted in cheers. Tom and Varak stood side by side, breathing heavily but proud. They had earned their place. Varak turned to Tom and said, "You are more than a human. You are a warrior of the flame." Tom smiled. "And you are more than a warrior. You are my brother in arms." The high priest approached and placed a glowing mark on each of their foreheads. "This mark is the bond of fire and trust. It will guide you through the stars." Tom looked at the crowd, then at Varak. "We came here strangers," Tom said, "but we leave as allies." Varak nodded. The sacred ritual was over. But their journey was only beginning. Together, they would face whatever the galaxy sent next.